Welcome back. If you just watched the introduction to two-point perspective, I'm going to take the drawing that I finished with there and add on to create sort of a city of the future. So what we'll be doing in this tutorial is kind of figuring out how objects work in two-point perspective and things that aren't just squares. Maybe we'll do some more rounded shapes. We could even do letters, signs, windows, streets, that sort of thing. So usually when we look at two-point perspective, we're looking at, say for example, a city street. We'd be looking at it from a corner, maybe if we're standing in the middle of a four-way stop. So we'd see our street here and a street here. Maybe you have some other things coming this way. So I'm going to just make a sidewalk in a street to start with. So sidewalks usually come right up to a building, and I will make my converging lines for that. And just think of the proportions here. So how big is a sidewalk compared to a street? Usually quite a bit smaller, so I'm not going to make the sidewalk that large. The street, however, is going to take up most of this space, so I'll connect the end of this building to be my sidewalk. And then I'll make that just a little bit wider. So, things that get closer to you get bigger. And then my street would be here in the middle. I'll do the same over here. I'm just going to connect this space. So there's the corner of my sidewalk. There's kind of a little walkway here now. And I've got a street over here with another sidewalk. If I wanted to make this like a four-way stop, I could just continue my lines that I started here and just erase this area out. So now I have kind of a four-way stop going on. I'll check here. Now this one we wouldn't see, it'd be off the page. So here's our really basic start of a cityscape. Let's talk about rounded objects. For example, maybe I want to have a tube going from this box to this box. What I'd start with would be the sides of it. Depends on what angle I want. If I want them diagonal or curved, I'd like a curvy one, I think. So I want to start in the center of the box. This will be kind of one side. And then I'll make a parallel line here. And now since this is round, we're going to see kind of an ellipse here to show that it is rounded. And we'll erase the back side because it's covering it. And maybe if I wanted to make this look like a water slide or those little tube slides on playgrounds, I'd add in another ellipse around this and keep kind of adding those curves as I go down and around the shape. Now it looks kind of like different pieces going on. I could even make them more dimensional and come off of the object. So there's one idea. Maybe you have an object on stilts. I'll say this one seems to be floating here, so it needs to have something holding it up. I'm going to stop at the sidewalk. I want the bottom to be kind of rounded, if not flat, so it's a pole, so it'll be rounded on the bottom. And then we'll erase out the insides. And there'd be one kind of, let's see here, the back corner would be back here, so maybe we'd have another pole back here somewhere. And they wouldn't be the same length. If you look at a table underneath it, the legs don't line up when they're behind each other. I'll add some grass there so we know that it's on the ground. And we'll put another pole here. I'd say the back of this is supported by this building here. So what would tell us that it's above the ground is having a nice shadow. If you're going to be using colored pencils or paint or anything, I would hold off on the shading until you get that far. If you use colored pencils over the top of a pencil like this, it would get really muddy and kind of gross looking. So now we know it's sitting there. To make poles look like they're in shadow, the shading would kind of wrap around them. So it would be dark on one side and get lighter as it goes to the other side. If we wanted to maybe do the lines on a sidewalk, we'd actually have to be using converging lines. They would go to the opposite converging line. And remember, the closer things are to you, the bigger they are. So the farther away they are, the smaller they're going to get. So just keep in mind scale. How big is one thing compared to another thing? So I would just continue that on, and eventually, like back here, you wouldn't really even see any lines anymore. So we'll just do it on this side. And just go back in the distance. Now let's talk about windows and doors. So if we're only drawing something that's on one side, we're actually going to kind of switch into one point perspective. So for example, if I wanted a door here, I would make two parallel lines, so they'd be parallel to the sides of my structure. And then for the top of the door, it would be a converging line to the converging line that the top and bottom of the building would be. So there's my door. I could give it a door frame if I wanted to, with two more parallel lines and another converging line. So there's a door. If I wanted to do a window, the tops and bottoms would be converging lines, and then the sides would be parallel lines. So make sure it's parallel, straight up and down here. If I wanted to make kind of panes in my window, those would also be parallel. And then whatever goes the other direction would be a converging line. You can make these thicker if you want to give it more detail. I'm a big fan of detail. So that'd be how you'd make a window. Now, maybe we want to make an interior space, maybe like the door is cut out. So I'm going to make the top of it with a converging line. I'll make the sides with parallel lines. And then I think I'll connect this corner to my opposite vanishing point. And I'm going to make a side of a door. So it's opening. And then we'll just say this corner would be the outside corner. So I'm going to draw another converging line here to show the back of the room. You aren't going to see much of it, but that little line makes a big difference. And then we just say this could be in shadow because it's inside. Unless there are lights on in there, I guess that's up to you. And we get lighter as we get towards the opening. So that could show us a way to create interior spaces as well. Now let's talk about round things here. Maybe I want to make a building with a rounded top. So I'm going to connect the bottoms to make the base of the building. This one's already connected. I'll connect the top here to start with a box. And I'll make the sides of the building. Then say I want like a cylinder or something. What I'm going to do is find the middle of this. I'm going to draw a line straight up for how tall I want it to be. So this will be the top. And then I'm going to just kind of connect the dots. So it kind of helps me find my rounded edge. And then the top of this would be a converging line as well. And this line here, we're going to have a parallel line to the back of the building, parallel to this curve. It'll just kind of show us where the back is. So there we have a nice curved roof. This would be the same way to create cylinders and things too. So I don't know, maybe here I want to have a circular opening. We'll just work with circles here. So I'll be parallel to the sides of the door. Here I'm going to, in the center, make a converging line. And depending on the shape of your circle, just try and keep it even as much as you can. And we'll just connect the dots. So this is going to be a little more of an oval just because we aren't seeing it straight ahead. And because we're seeing it from the side, we're actually going to see part of the inside of the circle here, showing us the depth of the circle. So we have some shading. Maybe darker at the top because that's away from the light. And then maybe if we wanted to show the interior of the space, I'd connect this corner. Obviously there's not going to be anything there. This would be the ceiling. And there still wouldn't be anything there. Alright, so we won't actually see any of the tops or bottoms. We just have kind of a parallel line right here to show the back of the wall. So whatever wall we think is going to be farthest away from the light would be darker. Or maybe you even want to add some details in there. Maybe we could even put like a wall light or something in there. Or a bed. Let's make a bed. We've got a nice bay window here. Actually, come to think of it, the bed would be in perspective too. So there we have it, kind of the start of a city. The sky is really the limits with what you can do with overlapping and adding windows, doors, openings, different shapes. You can even make letters in perspective by following these same sorts of things. So maybe this building is the letter E. I could make this the back of the E here. And then to make the bottoms, it'd be like little converging lines. And then I can erase these extra spaces. These extra spaces. And there we have a big 3D E here. So lots you can do with 2-point perspective. For the remainder of this video, I'm going to just flip everything into time lapse so you can get an idea of filling up the rest of the page with the images.